So, Prince Edward just executed an unprecedented midnight eviction against Queen Camilla at Windsor Lodge, and the detail that has left the entire royal establishment completely paralyzed is why the quietest, most understated member of the royal family suddenly decided to detonate a catastrophic legal bomb directly beneath his own brother's marriage. For decades, the Duke of Edinburgh was universally characterized as the most reserved, scandal-free royal who dutifully attended routine engagements in sensible shoes, avoided tabloid controversies, and quietly returned home without ever challenging the palace hierarchy. Yet he is now the very man who unearthed an obscure, 80-year-old wartime covenant from the 1940s and weaponized it to permanently lock Camilla out of the secluded private sanctuary she had quietly occupied for years. Now, before we dive into the intricate legal machinery and the explosive family fallout behind this astonishing power shift, make sure you hit that subscribe button to Palace Files right now so you never miss a single update as we break down the high-stakes royal maneuvers the mainstream press refuses to touch. The entire crisis ignited at precisely 11:45 on a freezing Tuesday night when a solitary black sedan pulled out of the gates of Bagshot Park, Edward's primary residence, and sped silently through the darkness toward Windsor Great Park, carrying a senior legal courier entrusted with a sealed manila envelope bearing the Duke of Edinburgh's personal wax crest. This was not an informal family letter, an administrative scheduling inquiry, or a polite request suggesting that Camilla reconsider her private weekend plans. It was an unyielding, legally binding eviction notice that sent absolute shockwaves through the night duty staff the moment the signature was verified. Edward had chosen his operational window with terrifying precision, launching the strike during a designated period when King Charles was away from London, resting at Sandringham under strict medical supervision for his ongoing treatments. That timing was no accident. It was the calculated move of a master strategist who understood precisely when the reigning monarch would be entirely unreachable and exactly how much time was required to establish physical possession of the estate before any bureaucratic resistance could be organized. The document delivered an uncompromising 72-hour deadline for Camilla's personal household staff to completely clear her private belongings from the property, offering zero opportunity for mediation, negotiation, or palace intervention. Under standard constitutional assumptions, the reigning sovereign exercises comprehensive control over crown lands and royal residences, determining precisely who occupies every square foot of royal territory. But Edward's private legal team had spent over 18 months conducting covert research inside the private royal archives at Windsor, where they unearthed a forgotten legal instrument enacted during the reign of King George VI. In the turbulent years of the 1940s, the royal family restructured the administrative ownership of several smaller estates within the Windsor boundaries to shield private assets from post-war political scrutiny and preserve sovereign security for younger royal lines, embedding a protective covenant that granted the direct lineage of the monarch's youngest son a permanent, hereditary right of veto and occupancy over Windsor Lodge. Royal property law is a notoriously complex labyrinth of ancient precedents and statutory exceptions, and Charles's contemporary estate planners had completely overlooked this specific clause during their routine administrative audits. Edward verified the legal validity of the covenant with independent constitutional scholars, secured certified court documentation, and served the papers with absolute finality. But the most explosive clause of the notice revealed that Windsor Lodge was being transferred immediately to Edward's 22-year-old daughter, Lady Louise Windsor. Handing a prime, heavily fortified private estate inside the Windsor perimeter to a university student who remains a non-working royal represented a direct public rejection of King Charles's centralized, slimmed-down vision for the monarchy, and before the palace could even coordinate a response, the logistics were already in motion. At precisely 6 o'clock the following morning, 2 unmarked commercial moving vans rolled through the heavy morning mist toward the Windsor security barrier, where armed protection officers stood guard at the gatehouse, moments before a dark gray SUV pulled up from the opposite direction carrying Queen Camilla in the front passenger seat, wearing dark sunglasses in the dim morning light. When the Queen's vehicle approached the barrier, expecting the gates to open automatically as they always had, the head of estate security stepped forward holding a clipboard and refused to press the electronic release button. His orders had originated directly from the Duke of Edinburgh's private estate office at Bagshot Park, instructing the security detail that no unauthorized vehicles, including those belonging to the Queen Consort, were permitted past the checkpoint until a full structural and property inventory was officially finalized. Camilla stepped onto the gravel driveway accompanied by her private secretary, demanding immediate clarification and written proof of the obstruction, prompting the security officer to hand over a certified copy of the George VI covenant bearing an ancient administrative stamp that had not been deployed in over 7 decades. The document explicitly stated that the youngest son's lineage maintained absolute physical custody of the designated parcel during times of institutional transition, and when Camilla's private secretary frantically attempted to telephone Buckingham Palace to secure an emergency override from the king's senior aides, every single call went straight to voicemail because the king's medical staff had placed him under strict isolation protocols to prevent elevated stress. Edward had calculated the maneuver to perfection, landing the blow during the exact window when Camilla was completely isolated from royal authority. Windsor Lodge was not merely a luxurious country house. It was a secure private retreat where Camilla had spent years curating personal journals, family heirlooms, private correspondence, and historical records that she deliberately kept separate from official state archives. When the bonded packing crews entered the property under the supervision of Edward's legal representatives, they were not moving standard decorative furniture. They were inventorying and securing crates of highly sensitive personal documents and royal artifacts that Edward argued belonged to the historic estate of the late Queen Elizabeth II rather than Camilla's private holdings. The manifest for the moving vans indicated that the crates were not destined for Clarence House or any major royal palace, but were instead divided between a secure vault facility in Surrey and a private cottage on the perimeter, effectively dismantling Camilla's autonomous operational base within the Windsor estate and forcing her to rely entirely on monitored staterooms where every movement, visitor, and briefing paper is tracked by institutional bureaucracy. Within an hour of the final moving van departing, a modest green hatchback arrived at the gate carrying Lady Louise Windsor, who stepped out holding a single leather bag and a set of brass keys tied with a dark ribbon, dressed casually in walking boots and a wool coat, appearing as if she were arriving for a university reading break rather than taking formal possession of a fiercely contested royal property. Her father was waiting at the entrance to hand over the registered title documents, marking a profound departure from the long-standing narrative that Edward and Sophie's children would remain completely detached from royal property networks. While Louise had maintained an exceptionally low profile studying English literature at St. Andrews, she had also become deeply dedicated to carriage driving, inheriting the passion and sporting equipment of her late grandfather, Prince Philip, and Windsor Lodge possessed extensive, recently upgraded private stabling facilities that provided a world-class training base entirely independent of the king's personal purse. The institutional pushback from London was immediate and severe. Within 2 hours of Louise signing the property acceptance receipt, a courier from the Sovereign Grant Office delivered an emergency memorandum from the Treasury indicating that because the residence was now occupied by a non-working royal, all publicly funded security patrols and maintenance subsidies for the perimeter would cease at midnight. It was a calculated punitive measure designed to render the property financially unmanageable and force an immediate evacuation, but Louise's response was entirely unyielding. She walked directly to the stable complex, surveyed the physical boundaries herself, and authorized the hiring of a private security firm staffed entirely by retired royal protection officers who had served her grandparents for decades. Back at Bagshot Park, Prince Edward sat in his private study reviewing the registered property transfers of the Windsor estate, picked up a secure landline, and placed a direct call not to the King's private secretary, but to Adelaide Cottage, the residence of Prince William. This covert coordination between Edward and the Prince of Wales had been quietly developing for over 18 months, rooted in William's deep-seated determination to protect the long-term integrity of private family papers and ensure that strategic properties within the Windsor perimeter remained strictly under the control of the direct royal bloodline rather than falling into the administrative orbit of Camilla's external family circle. The two senior royals had reportedly finalized their strategic understanding during the Balmoral summit in the summer of 2024, agreeing that traditional family lines required physical, unassailable strongholds within the Windsor perimeter to guarantee long-term operational continuity for the next reign. By deploying the 1940s covenant, Edward had established a monumental precedent proving that the reigning monarch's authority over crown lands is not absolute, erecting a protective legal barrier that shielded other historical properties from being leased out or repurposed. Camilla's legal representatives launched a fierce counterattack later that afternoon, filing an emergency property claim asserting private ownership over an extraordinary collection of rare watercolors and uncatalogued family portraits hanging in the main gallery of the lodge. Her legal team argued that these masterworks constituted private personal gifts rather than crown property, attempting to force a high-value financial settlement or compel a public inventory of the house's contents, but Edward was fully prepared for the contingency. He immediately produced original estate ledgers signed by the late Queen's private executors, confirming that every single artwork in the gallery had been legally designated as an inseparable fixture of the building itself, having the certified documentation delivered to Camilla's solicitors before the High Court even opened the following morning, neutralizing the legal threat instantly. The ultimate pressure, however, was concentrating at Sandringham, where King Charles woke up to explosive intelligence reports regarding the eviction, while his personal medical team urged him to remain calm to avoid compromising his health. The king found himself trapped in a devastating constitutional dilemma between personal loyalty to his wife and respect for historical legal covenants, as senior Privy Council advisors warned him that attempting to overturn the George VI covenant via an emergency royal decree would trigger an unprecedented parliamentary debate regarding the limits of sovereign power over private royal trusts. Furthermore, royal solicitors confirmed that Edward's legal framework was entirely airtight, meaning that if the king attempted to forcibly remove his niece, the Duke of Edinburgh's team was fully prepared to contest the matter in open court, exposing decades of confidential family property agreements to public scrutiny. Charles recognized that waging a bitter, highly public legal war over a multi-million-pound residence amidst national economic hardship would permanently damage the public standing of the monarchy, leaving him with no viable choice but to surrender. The king summoned his private secretary, ordered all retaliatory legal actions from the Duchy of Lancaster to cease immediately, and signed an executive confirmation formalizing Lady Louise's lawful tenancy at Windsor Lodge. By Friday morning, the transformation was total. Private security units patrolled the fences, Louise's academic books and equestrian equipment filled the private study where Camilla's confidential archives had resided only days prior, and the internal geography of the Windsor estate had been permanently altered. Camilla remained in London at Clarence House, deliberately cancelling her planned weekend retreats to Windsor, while her inner circle privately condemned the eviction as a ruthless corporate-style strike designed to exploit a temporary moment of institutional vulnerability. The personal relationship between Camilla and the Duke of Edinburgh's household has suffered a catastrophic, irreversible fracture, with palace protocol teams already redrawing official seating arrangements for upcoming state ceremonies to maintain physical separation between the factions. Later that Friday, Prince William drove himself unannounced from Adelaide Cottage to Windsor Lodge without a security convoy or press team, personally delivering a housewarming gift to his cousin in a visible demonstration of solidarity that completely paralyzed any lingering plans for a palace counter-offensive. The powerful alliance between William and Edward sent an unmistakable message to the royal bureaucracy that the future king fully backed the decentralization of estate power and the preservation of the late Queen's legacy through uncompromising legal precision. The administrative ripple effects cascaded through the royal household immediately, with local land agents who previously answered to central palace departments now routing their documentation directly through Bagshot Park, effectively removing a massive section of Windsor Parkland from Buckingham Palace's immediate jurisdiction. Public reaction to the unexpected transfer overwhelmingly favored Lady Louise, whose disciplined, unpretentious public image and dedication to carriage driving framed her as the ideal, authentic custodian of an estate deeply intertwined with Prince Philip's historical legacy. The Palace Communications Office, entirely unable to reverse the reality on the ground, quietly allowed the positive public narrative to take hold, permanently stripping Camilla's allies of any remaining public relations leverage. Within a single week, Windsor Lodge transitioned from a heavily guarded, private administrative enclave for the Queen Consort into an independent, fortified stronghold for the rising generation of the royal family. The absolute monarchical authority that had dictated estate assignments for centuries was decisively broken by a forgotten wartime document and a branch of the family that refused to be sidelined. When you step back and examine the entire sequence of events, this confrontation was never simply about an argument over a brick country house. It was a defining, high-stakes battle over who will exercise physical, legal, and historical control over the monarchy's most sacred assets as the institution prepares for the next reign. Prince Edward identified a formidable legal weapon that had gathered dust in the archives for 80 years, executing the maneuver at the exact moment when King Charles was medically incapable of mounting a sustained defense, and Prince William was ready to protect the flank. Camilla was stripped of a vital private sanctuary, but far more critically, she was stripped of the unwritten assumption that her authority within the Windsor perimeter was unassailable. Lady Louise gained a historic residence, but she was also thrust directly into the unforgiving center of royal power politics, while King Charles, isolated at Sandringham, was forced to accept that the preservation of institutional legitimacy outweighed the personal defense of his wife's private sanctuary. The era of unquestioned, centralized royal command is rapidly eroding. The younger branches of the family are establishing their own independent operational borders, and the man long dismissed as the most quiet and unassuming royal has proven beyond all doubt that he possesses the strategic brilliance to reshape the House of Windsor forever. Tell me this. Did Prince Edward act with calculated brilliance to protect the late Queen's sacred historical legacy for the next generation, or did he ruthlessly exploit his brother's medical vulnerability to settle an old score and secure prime royal territory for his own daughter?